Okay, we will discuss several principles later, but behind these principles, there are several factors which we can identify as a philosophy of Open Up. Among the first thing is this: stakeholders should know the project goal. If you can remember the previous video, and that story gives an overall view, and the people, without having, well, that particular customer doesn't understand everything that has to be done, but she knows what she wants to get. That goal is very important on both sides. Things are complex, of course, but let's start on a simplified approach. So get into someone, well, the people who have helped will follow it. Agility could be described as an ability to change, ability to change the way things are practiced. And should not always, if the people are bind with lots of existing stuff, if they are not ready to change, and if they are not too attached to some of the tools, maybe pro models, then it's very hard to change. And things has to be modified to satisfy the one needs. Then only you can get the maximum benefit. And these are at the same time, it may be a job of a particular um, the, the development team, but other stakeholders collaboration has a big effect. Even talking to the uh, customers who comes to the store will add in a very good value and identify the things should be how things should be designed and developed. So again, these agile also promote, open up also promote, because they combine and provide in a better framework. I'm not going to talk in detail about the cooperation and collaboration. Lots of examples available. What is the most important thing? The commitment. If that commitment is not there, and if people just provide the details, and if the people are not undertaking any responsibility about what they do or what they say, especially, so like some politicians, okay, sorry to make that comment, but that is the reality. uh, then there is no collaborative effort to it. All for one, one for all. It's a famous theme which described on this topic on a collaboration. A nice small video which you can watch. Many similar videos are available. If time permits, you can watch and understand. So we'll start going into detail. First, defining. We know now what is it. It's the definitions comes with those three features which I explained earlier. It's an iterative software development process with these three things. Keep in mind, minimal. As I said, it has only the fundamental things, what we call a fundamental content that is required to build a process, but it is complete. Uh, can be considered the entire process to build in a system. Not a huge, but uh, moderately and simple. But have a freedom, facilities, things to extend. Taking the open up as a foundation, and there the process content can be added or tailored as needed. So I have seen in many organizations, they take the open up. Open up is the foundation, but they have their own code name, software development process models, and people follow that one. So these three features are the things what we can observe and you know. At the same time, there are principles associated with an open up. These principles are very important. So, in the summary, first principle is to collaborate to align the interest and the share understanding among the team as well as in the other stakeholders. Collaborate and balance competing priorities to maximize the stakeholder value. We discuss more details about the lots of people are trying to maximize their value, but the development team need to maximize the stakeholders value. Focus on architecturally to minimize the risk and organize development. That's a kind of a principle which will help the people uh, to go into an unstable environment, to avoid going into unstable environment, and also how the people should organize things. Evolve continuously, obtain feedback, and improve. So, obtain the feedback and improve continuously. It's a part of the thing. It's a growth. Okay. Although it's an iterative things, you see the main things, and it grows with the time. So these are the four principles which are associated with the open up, and it's good to see what they say. The principle doesn't make it becomes a political statement if we don't have enough practices associated with these principles. And people need to follow these practices to make principles that are in operation. So let's look at what are the practices associated within each of these things. When we say collaborate, it promotes the practices, a new set of practices that foster healthy team environment. When we say healthy, so the people, it's not an uncomfortable, it helps the people. And enable collaboration and develop a shared understanding of the project. So everyone doesn't know everything, everyone cannot see everything, but having a shared understanding, not only what uh, some people do, it's everyone has a good, including the client who is a partner of the, or who is a part of the project. So some of the key practices I have listed. So as you can see here, to maintain the common understanding, they use things like vision, requirements architecture, notebook, iteration plan. So the good thing is in open up you have templates to record these things and you have to use it. Foster the high trust environment, so they manage intent, tear down walls, understand perspectives of others. Share responsibility, they follow the everybody owns the product. That is the kind of thing. You just don't fight saying there is everything happened because of the others. If something goes wrong, help the other people. Learn continuously. Develop a technical interpersonal skills, be a student and a teacher. Okay. A good teacher knows the students because he's a good student who understand not only the easy side and also difficult side, difficulties. Organize around the architecture. So the architecture provides the shared understanding of the solution and forms the basis of partitioning the work. So based on that, they work. They contribute for the architecture and they know from which segment that we are working on. So the people have kind of practices. If you follow these practices, then you support the first principle. The next principle is balance competing priorities to maximize stakeholder value. What is that? That associates the practices uh, allowing the participants and the stakeholders to develop a solution that maximize the benefit compliant with the constraints based on the project. So let's see the key practices which usually associated with the open model. Know your audience and create the shared understanding of the domain. So identify the stakeholders early. Establish a common language. So there should be some activities. So will people have to follow? Share the separate the problem from the solution. Okay. Solution is provided to solve the problem. And if we try to make it like a combined thing, it becomes into a problem. So understand the problem before rushing into the solution. That is the best thing. And you define and you separate. So don't define. Most of the time people even before hearing, like some doctors write the prescription before the patient describe the problem. So I have seen, explain, and I don't know. So software engineers should not be such kind of doctors. Use scenarios and use cases to capture the requirements. And use cases are important. That's an abstract. And try to associate with the respective scenarios. And that will help to understand the real requirement from the stakeholders' point of view. Established and maintain agreement on priorities. Prioritize the work to maximize the value and minimize the risk early. Is the kind of a thing where whenever what to do, this or that, well, always try to build this practice. Make trade-offs to maximize the value. So even the sacrification, we can't do everything. Everything is a limited constraints. Investigate alternative designs and the refactor to maximize the value. So refactoring, I hope, not a new term to all of you. It's very, very important practice. Yeah, redo the things to make it more stable. Manage scope in a way to control the complexity, assess the impact of changes, and set expectation accordingly. Otherwise, what will happen? Uncontrolled change propagation. So don't cross the scope. Okay, people have to work within their scope. So these practices could be practiced in many different ways. So open up, provide kind of ways to promote these practices. Third principle, focus on architecture early to minimize the risk and organize development. So that how do we minimize the risk and organize development? So those are the two things what people by focus in the architecture do. So here let's look at the relevant practices. Create the architecture for what you know today, okay, not for tomorrow. What you have it on hand, okay. We leverage the architecture as a collaborative tool. Good architecture facilitates the collaboration by communicating the big picture and enabling parallelism in development. Okay, that's some sort of the benefit. So it's not a hidden thing. Sometimes people are afraid to say the architecture because they think that someone can easily copy. No. Cope with the complexity by raising the level of abstraction. A very powerful tool. That's why the object oriented is so powerful. So use these models to raise the level of abstraction to focus on the important high-level decision. Organize the architecture into loosely coupled, highly cohesive components. So, are famous two principles in software engineering: loosely coupled, high cohesive. So, design the system to maximize the cohesion and minimize the coupling. Okay, always that's we have to do to improve the comprehension and increase flexibility. That is the benefit. Okay, when these things comes, the automation becomes easy to do. Reuse existing assets. Why do you want to waste? And we are not going to reinvent. So try to promote those things. So then if we do those things, it becomes easier. So these are the few practices. There may be lots of new things where people could add, but some of the practices people, if someone wants to follow, it may be at the individual level, it may be at the team level. Okay. So let's move to the next one. The fourth, the last and fourth is evolve continuously to obtain the feedback and improve. Okay. Always the future depends on the kind of, if the feedback is not there, you may go in the way. So like that, uh, the feedback is very important to the lectures. So if the people can provide the feedback for the content what you hear with respect to, and also discuss the things, that will help to improve it. So key practices, the first one, develop your project in a iterations. So for that, the time box iterations that deliver the incremental value and provide the frequent feedback is a kind of a major thing what we can observe. Focus iteration on a meeting the next management milestone. So somehow these milestones are very important in the project management thing. So divide the project into phases with clear goals and a focus iteration on meeting these goals. So therefore the client could see. Manage the risk, identify, eliminate the risk early. Okay, don't wait. And even a small thing, okay, will prevent a big issues in the future. Personal life also it's there. So if people keep on doing the same thing, okay, that may affect wrongly, badly for the personal health. Embrace and manage change. Okay, adapt to changes. Okay, uh, it's unavoidable circumstances, and let's see the changes are good, and it's a new challenge. Measure progress objectively, not to say we have doing good. We have to deliver the working software and get daily status and use metrics. So these practices are good, and some more things could be added, but then we will see how these practices do it. So the principles could be achieved if you can promote these practices as much as possible. Open up is agile and unified. When we say it's agile practices, okay, some of the practices incorporates in open up. So first, test first design. So people don't want to put the testing as the last thing to do. So people start the testing process while the design is being carried. Very good and famous practice in the agile. So it's directly incorporated here. Continuous integration. The common practice is to integrate at the end once you have all the components done. No, it's a part of the development before you move to the next one. estimation with respect to the time and the resources need. Okay, you don't want to have a big plan, you do it while doing it. Daily stand up, iteration assessment, iteration retrospective are very good practices where people can communicate, assess what they do, and how they address what they have not done. So these are good. And if those things done, well, you don't need another commander to guide the team. The team knows what they do and how they move. So if these things could be incorporated within the context of iterative incremental life cycle as defined in unified, so that is the way to practice agile and the unified process model together. Four principles. How earlier we discussed about the four principles and how these principles are linked with the agile manifesto. You will able to discuss more detail about the agile manifesto later, but the relationships is established in this way. The first principle is to collaborate to align the interest and the share understanding. Where on the other hand, agile manifesto on individuals and intentions over process and tools. So they focused those things, the people, more than the process they follow. Evolve continuously to obtain the feedback, improve, correspond to the responding to change over following a plan. Okay, and that will help. Well, of course, it doesn't say that the plans are not important, but we cannot postpone, we cannot neglect changes. We have to incorporate them and balance the competing priorities to maximize the stakeholder value. That's the principles. On the other hand, manifesto, customer collaboration over contract negotiation is more important to avoid unnecessary problems. Okay. Finally, we develop something for them. Okay. Focus on articulating the architecture. So working software over comprehensive documentation. Okay. More than so saying it's a lightweight. Okay. Documentation is not important. They are important, but this we should have some working software that will help, that give a confidence. So developing the comprehensive documentation could be done easily once we have the working software. The governance model of the balancing agility and the discipline in the open UP. So whenever we see wanted to see in a model, we would like to see in a picture how it looks like. So there are three layers as you can see here, and that is the governance model, where the three layers are focusing for three groups, but those three groups are working together. So the first one is about what is called the personal focus, where individuals work daily and they work on the work items. Their increments directly contribute to the teamwork. That is the second layer, where they concentrate on a weekly basis, but not for many weeks, but limited number of weeks, where to have or produce something which they can show a working software because shippable built as an iteration plan that they have it to cover the work. Where the stakeholders look at the whole picture from the four layers, gradually they see some working things and that builds the confidence. Okay, initially they don't know whether this will be successful or not, but that comes down, as you can see, and the values goes up. So this picture, micro increment, iteration life cycle, project life cycles are given. More details we will go into later, but very important a picture which creates a model in our mind. So the details, micro increments are personal focus, short unit of work, and produce steady measurable outputs in hours or days, intensive collaboration among the committed self-organized teams. And the second one is what we call the iteration life cycle, which is a team focus, time box intervals typically measured in weeks, iteration objectives that have some value to stakeholders. Micro increments are combined to achieve objectives here. And the third one we call the project life cycle or stakeholder focus with the four phases as defined in the unified process, and that shows the visibility of the project for all the team members uh, and facilitate to take decisions at the appropriate time, and the project plan defines the life cycle.